States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mona, will you take roll for us, please?
Melissa Bajorquez.
Present.
Rachel Blanco.
Present.
Chad Hoover, absent. Caleb Shields.
Here.
Alice Thompson.
Here.
Mayor King.
Here. All right, we'll get started with the consent agenda. We have budget versus actuals and minutes from the regular January meeting and the special meeting.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to citizen comments and questions. This is an opportunity to present items that are not on the regular agenda. Please state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. We'll start off with the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office report. We have the report in our packet, and we have Deputy Sanfordite with us tonight.
Also, a good time.
It was.
So getting on the way here, a couple things I want to talk about. Like I think I said before, like if people see something, like say something. I was just talking to, we don't necessarily have a drug team anymore, but we have CRT, community response team. And so I was talking to those guys. They do like low-level drug stuff. So we've had a couple overdoses lately, and it comes all over the county, but we've had a couple here. So I would encourage if somebody comes in and says, hey, this is what's going on, or we're seeing short stay traffic, whatever it is, like, don't be afraid to pass that information on to us.
What was the name of the team we have now? The what?
The CRT, Community Response Team. So they do like, if we have, they help detectives, it's a detective spot, but they, burglaries, and I know the Amity Sheriff's working on burglary here in town. You know, in the small towns, it's typically kind of the same people. We deal with the same people, so we know who is who. So, but yeah, I think if I can, anything in the community pass on, like if you see something, say something. I'd rather have information come at us that is nothing than find out later somebody had info and, you know, we didn't know about it, so.
And is that something where people can just call YCOM and leave a message?
Yeah, 100%. That's the easiest way to get to us. Yeah, so. And then tonight I've got Jake Holverson. He works up in the jail. He's been there, what, 5 years? Yeah. He just got, so I don't know if you guys remember Deputy Scare, he's a patrol guy. He just left, went to OSP. He had the drug detection thing. So that dog, Rojo, is now with Deputy Holverson. And so they have him out on the road for a couple of days to kind of get a feel for the radio and the computer and how patrol works. So now we'll be able to utilize, you know, if we have a car or a search warrant, we can call him out and they can assist on that stuff. So
Welcome, I'm glad to have you.
So thank you. Any questions for me?
Some discussion at our recent high school staff meeting of having somebody just from time to time, kind of at the lunchtime, looking at our teenage drivers who are, you know, and I know mornings, you guys are trying to hit the other, you know, the other parts of town, but
yeah,
got somewhere else squirrely.
So lunchtime.
Yeah.
Okay, I will pass that on to the sheriff.
Okay.
I'll let him know. So, perfect. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. And do you have a day report this evening?
Erin Rainey, representing Gabe, and we did have a meeting about the Deathville Festival Monday, and we'll have another one in 2 weeks on Monday. But one thing that came to, you know, in the brainstorming, and we wanted a tent in the Coelho's lot, and we had gotten permission, and then, okay, well, what if we had some food trucks? And yeah, with the city license, we could do that. You know, the permission from the Coelho was there for that too. And so then it's like, well, but the tents were like, you know, over $1,000 for like 30 by 50. So, okay, well, that won't really do. but maybe a smaller tent, and then maybe just a picnic table and music and enough carts that it's kind of a fun event, and then our Daffodil Festival at 1 would be the judging. So we're trying to put together a schedule, but just throwing out there about music or, you know, some kind of, to have a little event just right there in the parking lot to make it more exciting. So anyway, that's just kind of coming to mind now. And so it's, I think that, you know, we kind of got the permissions and maybe the ideas, and so we can work on that. And maybe, yeah, still looking at tents.
Thank you.
So anyway, that's the main thing. I think we'll have the poster by the next meeting out and getting the yard signs out, and, you know, yeah. They're coming up in my garden, even some buds. So, and as a matter of fact, the bouquet in there on the table when we walked in were Diana Braddock's, and the first one's in her garden, so she's picking the bottom on me.
And then I have a quick question. I know it's very dependent on Public Works availability and what Nathan lets them know to do. But is the hope to have the daffodil banners up just at festival time?
Oh, no, we could get this, right now we have the snowflakes, so anytime now, I'd say, you know, February's now, and so we could have them, because they're sort of springy, starting to think of spring, you know, within the next couple of weeks.
So should I wait until the snow stops?
Yeah, yeah, the idea of snow.
I just wanted to check in with Dig that anytime between now and
Yeah,
the festival's
yeah, but I think all of March is good, you know?
So we'll probably shoot for mid to the end of
Yeah,
February. so.
yeah. There's some red banners out there too for Valentine's, you know?
All right, any questions from council?
So, I kind of missed everything though about what happened to the hanging baskets. And I think they were coming down, it seems like I do remember seeing them out there in the Cuevas lot, and where, I don't think they're there now.
That's where Public Works left them.
Okay, well, maybe I should just ask Galen, because maybe they just hauled them out of there, you know, because they were parking or something.
Yep, that's where they were delivered.
And usually they've been in there, behind there, in the tower there, so. Okay, very good.
Thank you, Ryan. Do we have any citizen comments or questions from the audience? And do we have anyone with us online? Not seeing any. So we will move on to old business. Tonight, we will vote to adopt enacting ordinance for 220801 LA, legislative amendments to the Amity Development Code. This has been in front of us multiple meetings. We had the first reading vote last month. So do we need a motion to read by title only? I believe so.
I move to read by title only.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to read by title only. Any further discussion? Nope. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Nathan, will you read us the ordinance by title only, please?
I will. City of Amity Ordinance number 685, an ordinance amending the Amity Development Code to adopt standards for marijuana-related land uses, short-term rentals, and accessory dwelling units.
And do I have a motion for action?
I move to adopt the ordinance number 685, an ordinance amending the city development code to adopt standards for marijuana-related land uses, short-term rentals, and accessory dwelling units.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All All those in favor of adopting ordinance number 685, an ordinance amending the Amity Development Code to adopt standards for marijuana-related land uses, short-term rentals, and accessory dwelling units, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Ordinance passes. Thank you. Moving on to new business, we have low-income utility assistance program. This is something that we've been working on informally. We held during our last work session, we had a draft resolution and application in front of us. Nathan made some changes that we had talked about that council would like to see, and so before us we have the resolution and application, and it would just be a question of establishing the program. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't know if this matters at all, but the applicant affidavit doesn't mention anything about the account having to be paid in full. I don't know if that's an appropriate place to put that or not, but it might be, it's definitely relevant information applicants want to know.
I agree.
Unless I missed it, then please double check it.
No, I think you're correct. Most of the other programs I've seen do have that as a requirement and to include it on that.
Yeah, it's something we had discussed.
Yeah.
That really doesn't change anything within the resolution, but I definitely think we should take note and get it on the application before that goes out.
I can do that.
Any other discussion from council or comments or questions from the audience?
Did we discuss the 15,000?
At the work session, yeah, yes. Initially it was 10, and then we would reassess, but it's, instead of at the $10 mark serving like 133 people, or at the $20 mark serving 60 people, it was kind of in the middle. The $15 and 15,000 would serve about 83 people. So that was one of the changes. Would anyone like to take action on this item?
Motion to adopt resolution 2025-1, a resolution establishing a funded low-income residential utility bill assistance program.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting resolution 2025-01, a resolution establishing a funded low-income residential utility bill assistance program, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Resolution passes. Next, we have the Astound, Amity committee positions. So, Amity Day has met, the Amity Day committee has met once in the new year. With April Dyke leaving council, she held the co-chair position. My recommendation, and she has already said that she would accept, is that we put her into the chair position that's held by a community member. When we talked about points of contact, I said that I was willing to take the co-chair position. And then a new update is that one of the 5 appointed positions held, I received a resignation letter from Dana Dyer this past week, and so we'll have an open position on that committee. And so if there's no objection, I would like to open that for applications to the community. And so a motion here would just be to approve the proposed appointments and then also open for applications.
Motion to consent the MDA committee appointments and open for applications.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to the Amity Committee appointments as proposed and the ability to open for applications. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Now we have the Astound franchise agreement. Nathan, do you want to give a little bit of overview?
I certainly can, yes. So recently, Astound Broadband reached out to me and asked for an extension of the franchise agreement that they have with the city. Originally granted in April of 2015, this agreement had a term of 10 years, and so expires in upcoming April. They requested an extension for an additional 10 years. The city and its attorney and I looked over the original agreement, and we just came back with a couple of small changes. And the first one is to amend Section 8 of the agreement regarding the transfer of the franchise rights. Basically, the previous agreement had allowed, it didn't strictly allow Astound to give away their rights or to sell them, but it did if Astound was bought or sold or taken up by another entity, then those rights would transfer with it. Attorney Conroy and I just felt that basically it should just come through city council for approval of all transfers. In most cases, it would make sense to allow and continue that transfer and everything would be just fine, but this just gives the council a chance to know when companies are, when that company that you granted a franchise right to is either bought or sold, and what the next company is that now owns that franchise right and what they plan to do with it. The other thing, so the fee that we set on the franchise agreement in 2015 was either $500 per year or 5% of revenues, customer revenue for Astound. Every year they paid $500. Astound doesn't really serve customers in Amity necessarily. They mostly just have a major trunk line going through. It comes in on 153 and goes north on Trade Street. And so they are using our right of way. They still need the franchise right, but they're not necessarily serving customers, so they're not generating revenue in that sense. So instead, in 2015, we signed a fee of $500, and then just based on inflation, rising costs of everything, I simply asked if we could increase that price, that annual fee to $750. So, and they agreed.
Do you know, does that company serve residential customers elsewhere?
I believe they do. I'm not positive. I would say it's Astound Broadband. It used to be Wave.
Yeah. So we need Google and Ziply comes up.
They could be tied in with Ziply as well and providing some of Ziply's internet connection. I recently had the opportunity to walk through the city with a representative from each company actually. And if it tells you anything, the Astound representative knew less about the wires in Amity than Hunter and Ziply did. So they don't spend a lot of time in Amity. They have their main trunk line that goes through, and that's about it.
So a point of process here is that in order to make this amendment, we need to adopt an ordinance that overlays the past ordinance. And as it's written, to approve this in one meeting, we'll have to have two separate readings of the ordinance and have them both pass unanimously to get it done at this meeting. So procedurally, that would be a motion to read by title only, approval of that, read it by title only, then a motion to approve it, and then a second motion to approve or to read by title only, and approval of that, the reading, and then a second motion approved. If council has no questions and chooses to approve. The most complicated part might just be passing it, because then we will need a motion to approve the proposed amendment and authorize the second.
Okay, so that amendment covers the modifications, we don't have to say.
So the ordinance amends the ordinance,
Okay.
but then the third motion for the amendments allows him to sign the actual amendment document, which is what they need. We need the ordinance,
yeah.
they need the legal amendment. Is there any questions on the subject?
Subject, no.
Okay,
The choreography.
okay, so I will do my best to try to facilitate that. Do I have a motion to read by title only?
I move to read the ordinance by title only.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to read by title only. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Nathan, will you please read the ordinance by title only?
City of Amity ordinance number 686, an ordinance amending ordinance number 645 to extend and amend the existing franchise agreement between the City of Amity and Astound Broadband LLC for an additional 10 years.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 686?
Motion to adopt ordinance 686.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 686. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. The motion passes, and we have passed the first reading of this ordinance. Do I have a motion to read by title only of the second reading?
Motion, go ahead.
I did it first, your turn.
Motion to read by title only ordinance number 686.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to read by title only. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Nathan, please read the ordinance by title only.
City of Amity ordinance number 686, an ordinance amending ordinance number 645 to extend and amend the existing franchise agreement between the City of Amity and Astound Broadband LLC for an additional 10 years.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 686?
Motion to adopt ordinance 686.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 686. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Ordinance passes. Thank you. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the proposed agreement amendment and authorize the city administrator to execute the agreement?
Motion to approve the proposed agreement amendment and authorize the city administrator to execute the agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the proposed agreement amendment and authorize the city administrator to execute, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thanks for hanging in there for that one. Another fun one. We have a right-of-way and easement donation request by ODOT. So as we know, ODOT's preparing the projects that will replace all the programs and make them ADA compliant along both the state highways, Trinity Street and Highway 153.
To complete their project, we'll need a number of easements from all affected property owners, but the city has 3 separate properties that will be affected by this. They've given us an estimated appraisal value, and if we chose not to donate and ask for fair compensation for the temporary and permanent easements, the city would likely get around $2,500, between $1,500 and $2,500. ODOT is asking if you'd be willing to donate that land, either temporarily or permanently, or it's just 2 different sets of paperwork is how it was explained. Either way, they need this property and they're using this property, but we can donate it or we can ask for fair market value compensation. And so there was a lot of pictures and survey and information. I'm going to hand it over to Nathan to fill in any gaps I might have missed, and then I'll open up questions, comments.
I don't think you missed anything, honestly. The ODOT's getting ready to do their 88 curb ramp project. These are the little slivers of land, right? And you can see in some of the pictures, it really is just a little tiny sliver out here, right, to add to their right of way that they already own. And these are the 3 properties that would be affected. So they just sent me an email asking if the city would like to consider it a donation or to request fair market value. So I honestly think either way would be just fine. Whatever the council wants to do.
I'm going to bring it up. I have continued concerns with the temporary easement they're asking of our right of way. That is the driveway out of the auditorium. That will cause inconvenience to the business and the community, but also I'm worried about safety hazards because that parking lot was not designed for in and out traffic to come just on the east side. The way the parking lot is designed is to go in the east side and out the north side on Sherman. And so if they have, we're granting them that up to 3 years. I know it's not going to take 3 years, but we're saying anytime in the next 3 years, you can have this temporary easement and take up that driveway to where it's not going to be used. I know you, Nathan, did a walk with them and got a little more explanation. Did they seem concerned?
So my walk actually wasn't regarding the easements. I didn't even think to bring that up. We were focused on utilities and where utility conflicts were. We did ask that question to the ODOT right-of-way agent who sent these my way. I essentially just asked for clarification on the usage of the temporary easement in the area of Sherman and Trade, and then what is going to be utilized for a long time. Will the contractor be good about working with the restaurant for access, and what that might look like? And she responded and said, the temporary construction easement in the area of Sherman and Trade is a work area to set forms and room for the contractor to do the asphalt paving work at the back of the wall. Attached other plans showing the access to the business will be maintained. Details of how this will be accomplished will be determined by the contractor, but it is noted on the attached plans. We anticipate construction this summer. We can also draft a state obligation for our construction manager to sign, stating access to the business will be maintained for this site. Once the contractor is picked, which will likely be closer to the end of spring this year, we can relay any additional details the contractor will be planning back to the city, like how long they will be constructing, if night work may be used. But again, this will be up to the contractor to pick. So that might help answer the concern a little bit, that they do note on the plans that access to the business needs to be maintained. It gives the contractor a little bit more room to work, but it doesn't allow them to just
Yeah, but access could be just one entry on trade, and that's not a safe entry to have coming in and out.
It doesn't, it says that access will be maintained. If you look where it shows the temporary easement on that and paint markings that are on there, it will not allow for a vehicle to come out. So I guess that's why I have continued concern. I read that email response, but unless we push and make sure that when that's bid and the contractor says they will maintain our ability, I think they'll just hold us over us and say, there's an exit here, we're maintaining. And I know that the question at hand is not that, but I just think that we really need to advocate for the use of city-owned right-of-way to keep that business safe and, not jeopardize them trying to change things up.
I agree. I mean, especially with the 3-year limit that they have on it. And the contractor could just say, sorry, this equipment's staying here, and piles of things stay there, and then it closed for 3 years, and that's not a viable option, I feel like, in that lot.
I'm trying to look again. So it is. It shows 1 and 2, but so it's 83 square feet, the number 2 temporary easement. I wonder if we can, I'm just running this by council, can we say like we have approval either to donate or sell all of them, but we have continued concerns with this and we want something in writing now? Or how do you all feel is the best way to not, if we approve this, I feel like they'll just say, okay, we have all our permission.
Well, and do we want to gift it, or do we want to have them pay for it, I think is another discussion.
And that is the question at hand. I guess this is just a side conversation, but.
And say, I mean, I am happy to respond to Diane and basically ask them to include an obligation statement for the construction manager to sign stating that, and I can have them specify not just access, but this access to the business will be maintained.
I would appreciate that, just saying like, I know it's not really a negotiation, right? It's been said this is the best and most important use, but if you just request, say, a council has continued concerns and they want that in writing. Do you all feel that that would be adequate concerning that particular area?
Yeah, and I think then we're just up to their good, and some of it is gonna be what the contractor decides to do, right? Because it's.
Yeah. I just personally feel it's important that we advocate on the behalf of our community as much as possible, but then you're exactly right. It will just end up being then come in a fair and responsible manner. Okay, so with that settled, back to the question. Let's open for discussion of payment or donation.
What are the upsides of giving it away?
The only one that sticks out to me is good faith partnership of, partnering with ODOT, but I don't know that shines as bright as benefit.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a giant sum of money, but it's also some money.
Have you talked to other cities about how they other small cities?
I have not. Yeah, no, I haven't. I know several other cities are, like, they're gearing up to do most of Yamhill County kind of at the same time. But I don't know, and I don't know how that discussion is going.
I know a few cities have already went through this. Councilor Shields?
I think you should pay. I don't think we're in the business of giving property away. If this is something we had asked for, I think it's a different discussion, but this is something we told we have to do, and I don't feel obligated to give anything away from that.
And some of them are newer, but they did that wrong, or the standards changed?
Both.
Both. I tend to agree with Councilor Shields.
I'm seeing consensus, so there's multiple available options for a motion. I'll go ahead and let someone choose what they want to bring forward, and we'll take a vote.
Do we want to try to negotiate with the entrance, or is this a different type of,
I
it
think,
feels like it's a different issue.
yeah, so I think with this motion, we can make our choice there, and I think just, Nathan, do you feel comfortable with council has given some direction to staff? I think Nathan can just do that by email.
Motion to approve a sale of proposed easements and authorize the city administrator to execute the agreements.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving a sale of the proposed easement and authorizing the city administrator to execute the agreements, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Next, we have city council donations. So every year we have a list of donations. It goes to, kind of revolves, it's stayed the same for a long time. There's been tweaks over the years. We've had different nonprofits or entities come and ask for donations. We kind of keep a list and evaluate. So city staff gets this first, but it goes to our finance person. Councilor Borges, did you get a chance to look over this list?
Yes. I don't remember there being extra in previous years. Did we change? I didn't get a chance to look back at.
I haven't seen a side by side. It might have been that we just voted more, so that we had that in case, because I know a few, I believe it was possibly boosters and
Boosters, we did like 150 this year.
yeah, something else, but they came late, maybe year before last, where we'd already allocated, so we decided to budget that extra $500 so that if later in the year, someone comes and asks, we can take it on a case-by-case basis.
My only question with that was the Yamhill Transit, isn't that a requirement, or is that as per the donation?
We have not seen it as a donation here before. It is not a mandated requirement right now. We've budgeted as a council because within the transit agreement for small cities, they build it on the basis that everyone should contribute as their equal. And they have sent me a letter in the past saying, we have no contractual agreement to pay this, but your portion is $4,300. And as a council, we kind of decided, like, well, we can afford $2,000. I did the math a year or so ago, and that was like $1 per ride per Amity resident. I don't know about having why it's here as a donation. Any insight, Nathan?
Unfortunately not. I didn't have a chance to talk with Natasha about this before she left, but
It might just be since we don't have a contract.
That's the way it is.
Because it's not a bill.
I seem to remember this being a topic.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Well, I remember talking about, yeah,
It was was
Obligation,
an
non-obligation.
expected donation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Maybe
so,
better.
so it was, $2,000 was approved during this fiscal year in the budget. So I think this is just the way to be able to, when she sits down to write all the checks, it will go at the same time.
Motion to approve donations as recommended?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve donations as recommended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Next, we have the Small City Allotment Grant Agreement. Nathan, can you give us a quick rundown as well? I know that we have this before, but now we have the full agreement in front of us.
We do, yes. So the Oregon Department of Transportation recently awarded the city of Amity with a small city allotment, SCA grant, for about $205,000 to complete road repairs in the areas of Stanley and Enos Street. My hopeful, probably overly optimistic self says, hey, let's get this done before the end of summer. We'll see where we end up, but I do have, the plan is, to move forward with kind of a smaller engineering firm on this specific project, and they, because they're smaller, they tend to move a little faster, right? They just have less going on. And so we are hopeful. I think the main thing to kind of pay attention to is always that Exhibit A in the agreement that talks about the project description. That's how ODOT comes back at us and not comes back at us, but that's the most common area of, hey, you said you were going to do this and instead you did this, or, and so I worked with ODOT really carefully, Dina, the grant administrator there, to try to make it as vague and as open as possible for us to do the work that we wanted to. So it just reads, replace it or at the designated location of the existing asphalt will be removed, the road base repaired and then repaved. And that's Enos Street from 3rd North to the dead end, and then Stanley Avenue from 4th Street to north to 2nd Street. If there's funding there, and as funding allows, West 2nd Street from the intersection of Enos east to the degree that funding allows. So hopeful to get some of those streets kind of brought back up to par and reestablished. So this grant agreement is in front of us, and are there any other questions?
Questions from council?
And 2 years will be enough time, because it's from the agreement approval, right? Not necessarily.
2 years from today will be more than enough time, but for something like this, I really do anticipate it being done this calendar year. If push comes to shove, it'll be next spring, but it's a fairly small project. It'll move pretty fast, assuming we can get it out to bid quick enough, and before everybody's schedule fills up, then it'll work out, so.
It's exciting.
I do have a couple questions. One is very general in reading through. So this is a reimbursement that after the project's done, you can request for it to be paid. There's also an option that you can request 50% of it. Is that the plan? And do we have?
In the past, yeah, I have taken advantage of that 50% request up front, right? Kind of eases our budget just a little bit and makes that leap a little easier. I don't know, does it say 50% or is it 125,000? It might be 50%. So in this year, it'll be slightly less than it was last year.
Yeah, it does say 50%.
Okay.
My other adjacent question though, I do not think that the agreement will need to be changed, but it says that the total project cost will be $302,500. So we do not plan to invest $96,000 into this project, do we? The difference between the 302 and the 205?
At this point, no. We'll have to keep an idea on where funding is, well, like what funding allows, and see how bids come back. If bids come back that high, we'll definitely, I'll definitely bring it back and we'll have a conversation about whether or not we want to kind of include that kind of investment in the street fund or not. The most recent cost estimate that I got after talking with the engineer about these improvements was about 200,000. So that was the original cost estimate that I provided to ODOT, anticipating a grant of 250,000, and it included another street section that we've since removed in the project description. It included Stanley from 4th down to 5th. And so when we learned that we were receiving less than anticipated in grant funds, we removed that section, and ODOT's been pretty good working with me on, hey, like, we understand that you were already over the grant funding amount. Let's keep that ratio as much as possible. Fortunately, yeah, ODOT's grant awarding, or their determination of award, isn't really based on whether or not the city's contributing to that project. It's mostly based on the condition of the road. So as long as the road sections that we're doing have those defects, which I checked with them, they do, there's no concern there. They were happy to see us do any of those roads in that area.
But they won't be keeping track of how much we contribute above and beyond.
They won't. They're not concerned about that, no.
And then if the time comes and we're deciding if we're going to make an investment, if it is between $50,000 and $100,000, where would that come from?
That's something I have to look at.
Because I don't feel like we have that available. And so when it says, like, to the extent possible, are they expecting that we get everything in the project description done no matter what with the 205,000?
Yes, that's what has to be done. What's in the project description is what has to be done. And if we decide to only go to the 205,000, I believe that would be okay. I can double check with them before signing the agreement, just to make sure that if the project cost doesn't end up as high as the original estimate, then will that still be okay? And I think it will be just fine. At least when we did the Rice Lane Sidewalks project, they weren't concerned if I had to continue paying Keller or anything like that. Once I used the 250,000, I applied, and the project was complete, right? They need the project complete and the money spent. I submitted for reimbursement, we got all the grant funding, and they closed out the project. Even though I still had a couple of Keller bills, that were coming in a couple months after the fact, right? So.
I am in agreement with you. I don't think that it changes anything about us approving this, and I don't think you even need to check. I think we're on the same page. I just want to say that I don't think we're in the position to spend $96,000 more on it, and so it's really great if it's looking like bids are going to come in right around that 205. And I think that council and our street fund, if I can speak for both, would appreciate it staying right at that mark, if at all possible, to get all those things done. Is there any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Motion to approve ODOT's proposed grant agreement and authorize the city administrator to execute the agreement.
Second. I have a motion and a second to approve ODOT's proposed grant agreement and authorize the city administrator to execute the agreement. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. We will move on to Sidewalk Improvement Grant Program. This is another area that we've worked extensively in multiple work sessions. Our latest work
sessions, but it's also been an ongoing conversation. And so we have before us a resolution to enact the program and the grant application. Nathan, is there anything you want to add? Or anything that has changed since the work session?
I don't think so. This one at the work session, there weren't too many comments, so it's pretty much a copy and paste, so.
Any questions from council?
Maybe just a quick correction. In section 2 on the resolution, it says program shall become effective April 1st, 2025 for the 2024-25 fiscal year, and should be 25-26, if I'm not mistaken.
Whereas other
No,
people can use
so-
it
This year, so this year in April until July, it will be using funds from 24-25.
Oh.
And then come July, we would have funds from 25-26.
Okay.
Because we're still in this fiscal year's budget, and so if we open it in April, we have to be able to use the funds from 24-25. Up until July, and then it will switch. Is it making sense now?
It does, yeah.
Okay, I looked at it twice too, like, we're already in 25, but it's just the fiscal year that we're using. Because we have the $20,000 allocated for sidewalks in the 24-25 budget, so 10 of those 20 will go to this grant program to start it. We don't have a recommended motion, but if there were a motion to approve the resolution listed, we would just that.
Motion to approve the city sidewalk grant, which is and it's resolution 2025-02. Sidewalk improvement grant application.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2025-02, establishing a sidewalk grant program and the attachment of the grant application. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Resolution passes. Our last item of new business was an add-on. This is a Keller task order and some potential changes to the business-friendly water line project. We all got this ahead of time, it was added to the packet, but I'm going to let Nathan just give some background and bring us up to speed at where we're at.
Yes, so, this is regarding the 5th and Stanley water line, replacement project. We had originally proposed an alignment that would take a new 10-inch water line from where the 10-inch water line comes across the bridge. It comes across the South Creek Bridge from the water treatment plant. In the area of Woodland Way, it becomes a 6-inch asbestos cement line. And so, both between the age that asbestos cement lines are and the fact that it's immediately necking down to a 6-inch, the water master plan calls for an upgrade there to a 10-inch water line. Because we have leftover money in the Safe Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund that funded the South Creek Bridge project, the City Council approved the initial contract for this work to extend that, or to do the design and engineering, to extend that water line into the city. The original alignment had to go down 5th Street, south on the alley in between Common Cup, Amity Market, and then the Quayloaf Winery. alley right there. After, we got to the 30% design mark, and after reviewing the field with both Keller and a couple of contractors, the alley felt like it would be a difficult build. There are a couple of utilities already in the alley. It's really tight, close with commercial buildings. There's also a 6-inch water line running parallel right next to the line that we were hoping to replace in the alley.
And abandoned?
No. So in the alley, there's a 2-inch asbestos cement line, and then right next to it, essentially under the Coilos winery, there's a 6-inch PVC line.
In use?
Yes. We're pretty sure that both are in use. We're not positive on the 2-inch. The old asbestos cement lines, they didn't put valves on, so
So you can't isolate it.
there's no way to turn it off or check. And we tried turning off the 6-inch PVC to see if we could, see if anybody stayed on or if everybody got shut off. And unfortunately, the valves were giving us issues that day, so it didn't end up working out. Either way, long story short, the alley feels like it's not the best place to put a big 10-inch backbone water line. So instead, we were hoping to shift it to somewhere with more right-of-way access, just more accessibility over into Stanley Avenue, right? So that we can come south on Stanley and then east on 6th Street, all the way over to Trade, at which location there is a 10-inch line waiting for that way. And then we hook up to the 10-inch line that was put there, and away it goes off towards the reservoir. Unfortunately, that 10-inch line goes down Trade over to Church and then stops in Church and becomes either a 4 or 6-inch line there in front of the middle school. And then at the intersection of Getchell and Nursery, it becomes a 10-inch again. So, and then from there, the 10-inch goes up Getchell all the way to Rosedale, over on Rosedale, and then up to the reservoir. So if we can connect those sections, we'll have a 10-inch line all the way to the reservoir and increase flows. Anyway, so sorry for getting distracted.
I'm trying to keep up with that though, so there's already the 10-inch in Trade.
There is.
So you would connect at 6th, it's already there, and then you would connect at Church.
Yes. Yep. I think when they put in the downtown sidewalks, did some of those improvements, somebody had the foresight and said, hey, let's put a 10-inch while we're here in the highway. So great foresight there. It's there waiting for us. We just gotta bridge the gap. The point of this task amendment, or the scope and fee amendment for Keller's work, is initial cost estimates show the cost of just that water line, just that one phase, to be a little bit lower. And in addition to that, Keller, at least lately, has been overestimating costs, right? And so in recognition of that, we said, Pace at Keller Associates and myself said, hey, what if we design a couple of extra segments all at the same time? We have a survey for it, we have all of them ready to go, and then we can bid them as additive bid items. So we have priority one, right, is the main backbone line from the bridge over to Trade and 6th. And then if that one comes in at a low price, we can we're ready to add the 10-inch section between Church and Getchell. With this ARPA water line, we've had to kind of go back and forth with the funder a few times and say, hey, we actually have more. It's always great to have more money than we thought. So this is our way of trying to kind of catch that on the front end and be ready for it, so that we can say, oh, if things come in under budget, we're ready to go with the next set of plans. It also makes requesting funding from the state legislature and other grant opportunities easier if we have plans ready to go.
Shovel ready.
But That was our thinking with this one, was to kind of expand the, design and engineering budget and scope up front, and then have a few other items ready to go.
Super quick, just to remind everyone and interject and correct me if I'm wrong. The funding is through Business Oregon, it's a safe drinking water revolving loan fund. We took that out, or we pursued that, because when we needed to replace the transmission line on the bridge, that was all coming on us, and there was a potential that it would cost over $1 million. Through that process, it ended up costing much less than anticipated, and we got a grant for $600,000 from the county. So when all that was said and done, we were looking like we have this line of funding for around $1 million, and we can use it to do more work. Nathan brought that to council, we looked at it, it would be about $45,000-ish debt repayment, but we had already been planning that we would need this for other things. And so really, I think this amendment is just looking to get the best use out of that current funding we have. Because if we were to say, no, thank you, we're not doing this now, the safe drinking revolving loan fund funding is very competitive, and it might be quite a while before we could take that up again. So we have the funding secured, we have a plan, and it just sounds like our engineers were like, wait, there's a smarter way to do this. But it will cost $70,000 more, approximately. The payback would still be the same, because when we said to go ahead, it was to use up the whole loan amount. So it won't change debt service.
And it's really just kind of getting the engineering out of the way now for later projects that will be necessary. Do those time out at all?
That's a good question. I know I had that thought too, if we, get a plan ready and then don't, funding's not there for a few years. They don't necessarily time out, but you do, when you get ready to do the project again, you'll probably want to
Cost estimated again.
and then also do a pretty thorough check if the existing conditions are still the same.
Would you have to resurvey it and all that, or could you get away with not doing that?
You might have to at least, at least call locate, right? Like, you want to know that all the gas lines, everything else is still in the same location that it was. I don't know, there might be more to it than that too.
It just depends on how much time elapses, but you would have like right now we're waiting for 30% design and 60% design and 100% design. We would already have 100% to start with, and they could just kind of update as needed. So it would save costs regardless when the time came. The hope would just be to get it done as quick as possible.
I think it's a smart way to move forward, and also puts us in a better position if other grants when something comes up. So look, we have this.
I think it will help us in that sense. I hope it pays out, right? I hope it pays off. I think it will, which is why we brought it back. But
And as far as the alley, that makes total sense. If we can keep the line out of the alley where there's more right of way and get those full 10-inch connection, even if it's just on the west side connection, I think that's good.
Do we have any wiggle room to add on to that to just get it done? The whole, the east side of the trade there? Because I get that we are getting done what we need to get done, but the whole point of a 10-inch transmission line is to have a 10-inch transmission line all the way. And we're only as good as our smallest pipe, so.
Because it is in the water master plan, there should be parts that are SDC eligible. So you could look at what is in our SDC fund, and
if there was a gap, like, oh man, if we had $37,000 more, we could get this done.
Right.
Nathan could look and say like, oh, the city does have that. I believe it is in,
I think it would be SBC eligible. I think you're exactly right. It's in our water master plan. It's been called out for a long time, both sections of it, right? Like when they did the water master plan in 2014, they recognized that you're gonna need that little gap there. It's also, like I said, whoever put the 10 inches in trade and nursery had foresight. The places that we would be connecting to aren't in ODOT right of way. So it's really just going from church in front of the middle school over to Getchell, right there by the church. So it's, I mean, relatively, it's a pretty quick and easy one. There's not many connections on it, especially if the middle school's not in service. And so, you know, it's still water
would
work,
still
but
be in service now though, because this has to be done by the end of this calendar year.
They're out of there for
in
this school year.
June, September.
Oh, yeah, okay, never mind, yeah.
So
They're not, probably year.
it also, I think there will be funding left over. I have a conversation on Friday with the railroad. So the railroad is kind of the big question mark in this whole project, right? Is how long is it going to take and how much is it going to cost? Right now, the engineer's cost estimate includes boring under the railroad in both locations. After a conversation with the railroad previously, we talked about on 6 just being able to trench through it because the surface there is already really bad. The railroad has been thinking about upgrading that crossing to like the cement crossing, kind of like they did down at Riverbend Road. That whole crossing is nice and new, right? Has the cement the way they want it, and the pavement's good. And so I think they've been working on updating some of those crossings, and I think if we're willing to help chip in on some of that, and they want to do the project at the same time, it would be good timing for us to just trench through. It would save us $150,000 pretty easily, and so that conversation is Friday morning. So hopefully I come back with good news from that, and yes, there's more wiggle room. I hesitate to say yes right now, but I think there will be, but that's where we're at. Some of it's, and that's why we want to be prepared with the designs.
And Councilor Shields, I appreciate you bringing up the importance of trying to find something to do that gap, to just get it done, because I hadn't thought of that, but I think, Nathan, you hear loud and clear. Council would like, by any means possible, to try to pursue getting the full project as shown them.
So are we ready to move forward?
Yeah, if there's no other questions.
I move to approve an amendment to Keller's task order number 22 and authorize the city administrator to sign.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the proposed amendment to Keller's task order number 22 and authorizing the city administrator to sign, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. That was our last item of new business. We'll move on to department reports, and Nathan is going to freestyle his administrator report for us tonight.
I apologize for not getting one in here. Honestly, I don't have too much to add. When these agenda packets are bigger, it just means that more of my time has been spent on these things. So it means that I have less time for other things. But just as some quick reports, I wanted to mention Yamhill County Transit just because it came up in the donation item. I did reach out to them after our conversation in the budget committee last year about, you know, wanting to see more statistics and have kind of a formal request from them. I did reach out to Cynthia, the director. She did provide me the updated numbers, probably like the letter that they're going to send as a request for this year or the coming fiscal year. And then she did offer to come present as well, what ridership statistics they have. Right now, they don't have great counts. She said that the technology they have on their buses is a little underwhelming as far as counting, who gets on and off and where. They're working on installing new technology that's going to help give them really accurate ridership counts, but for right now, it's a little underwhelming. She had some estimates, but that's where we're at. So I invited her to come for March 12th, so she will be here at the City Council meeting on March 12th to kind of present that request and then explain a little bit more about the ridership that we see here in Amity, where all the route goes. I think it was worth noting, we were talking about it with the state legislators.
I didn't even know.
And Mayor King didn't even realize that the route takes you all the way to West Salem, right? And connects with the West Salem Transit Center. So it connects you over to Chariots in Salem. It connects you up to, oh man, I can't remember.
Tiger, maybe more.
Yeah, so it takes you up there and connects to that transit system. So it does provide some flexibility. It comes relatively frequently. It's not a ton, but it does come. So I wanted to report on that. I also, with all the sidewalk discussion that we've had, I reached out to a sidewalk contractor that I've heard good things about. Hiley and Son, Bill Hiley, Greg highly recommended him, Public Works. Anyway, and he and another contractor came and talked with me and Greg about what to do at some of these spots where the trees are tearing it up, kind of what our options are. I believe the contractor that came with Bill was actually the one that put all the sidewalks in back in 2010. He's really good. But they did give a few options. In most spots, they were estimating, between $7,000 to $10,000 to fix a spot, right? To tear out the sidewalk, remove the tree, repair anything that may be under there, and then to put sidewalk back. And then it really became a question of, do we want to put a tree there again? With the question of, is it going to be a problem again in 10 to 15 years if we put a tree back? Can we install things like root barriers? How effective are those, right? We've seen a big push for root barriers in the last several years of, install them all the time, but I haven't seen a lot yet about how effective they are at long-term working on that. I also feel like, the people I've talked to and kind of the history there talk about how, well, we learned that this one species of tree is good for sidewalk, and then 10 to 15 years later we learned that it's not that great for sidewalk. And so there's a lot of that, right? And that question of how important are trees in our downtown? Would we want to replace them with like flower planter boxes? Would we want to go with a different option? And so I've been doing a little bit of digging into, why are trees important downtown? What are the benefits? What are the cons? Are the benefits strong enough to outweigh the need to replace sidewalk probably every 10 to 15 years, right? And so I plan to bring that back more for a little bit more discussion. I know we keep going over the sidewalk stuff, but
I'm excited for your tree discussion. I've also done a lot of reading on the benefits of different type of landscaping and visual architecture and benefits of trees and.
Please, read up on it, because, that's ultimately up to the council to decide, right? If the benefits outweigh the costs, then, it's worth it, and we just say, okay, we're gonna put street trees in with the knowledge that we either need to remove the tree every 5 years and stop them from getting too big, or we need to, whatever that solution is.
I also think that's something that warrants a lot of public outreach and then partnership with DIG and other interested entities.
I did also ask about costs for concrete grinding, some potential services to kind of, as they put it, buy the city time. He's like, yes, you get rid of your gap now, but a year or two later, right, you have just a rounded gap. So, but maybe that's something that'll be helpful, and if we can get another 5 years out of it, right, that gives us more time. And sometimes that's what we need. Anyway, those are probably the big items for me. If anybody has any questions, as always, please reach out.
Any questions for Nathan right now?
Anything on the water pump situation beyond what we kind of have learned through?
Yes, let me report back on that for just a minute. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. So we had a water pump go down, essentially a tree or something floating, we believe, hit the intake screen on it. So it was all bent up, it's kind of pointed out of the water, sucking in air, that kind of stuff. So we took it, Greg took it somewhere in Salem, somewhere, and they cleaned it out, fixed it, they were able to bend the screen back into place. And so our pump is back in the river. We used a rental pump for a few days while that was happening, but our pump is back in the river.
Without extensive cost.
Yes, without extensive cost. It is working currently. Our situation is still not fantastic, but we are gaining. Basically, so the whole point of what we're building now, the pre-treatment building, is that the Yamhill River gets really, really muddy. They call it turbidity, right? Super high turbidity. That pre-treatment building helps knock a lot of that out. Our previous system used the intake in the riverbed to get rid of a lot of that turbidity. That system is struggling more and more, right? It's been struggling for the last several years, hence the reason for the river pump. But this year especially, we've had a lot of issues. Like normally once the river's over, I don't even know, like 7 or 8 feet, there's enough pressure to kind of use the pipes in the riverbed. We just haven't had that this year. They've been clogged or some of the riverbed has shifted and blocked it off more, something, we're not sure what. But so we've been having to run the river pump in conjunction with the pipes in the riverbed, which means that our water treatment plant is receiving a lot more muddy of water, right? Water with a lot higher turbidity, which clogs up our filters really fast. They pull the mud out, right? They make our water clean, but when a lot of mud is coming in, they get muddy really fast. So we're still not in a great spot, but we are, the reservoir's climbing, we're back to kind of normal there. They're going through the normal fighting processes, the ones that are used to fighting. Still very excited for the new intake to come online. That's supposed to be the end of this month. And so, crossing our fingers all goes well there, but.
When that new system comes on, will it also be an incoming of the new treatment system? Will it happen all at once?
I believe the new pre-treatment, so the new intake and the new pre-treatment process will happen all at once. We'll still be using our old clear well, but we'll get the pre-treatment process and the intake online, and then give it a few weeks, do some changes over in the SCADA system on our filters, and then once everything's ready, then we'll switch clear wells to the new one that's under the pre-treatment building. So, but that will likely be in April, I think, is when that second phase is. So everything, and then they'll still have to do the dam launch and all that, right? Everything will be done. It feels like as long as we get the intake and the pre-treatment process online, Public Works should be a lot happier, and
that's what's causing
water should be a lot easier.
Water customers issues.
Yeah. Some of it, just for your reference, sorry, total side note. We've been seeing, it feels like we've been seeing more water breaks than normal, like line breaks. We've gotten better at managing them quickly. Greg, and Public Works respond very well. And we haven't been putting them out on Facebook as much because we've been utilizing our billing system to let customers know directly, the ones that are affected. But it feels like we've been seeing more and more, and we're not sure what's going on there. Public Works is going to investigate. We're not sure if it's, some pressure differentials from the pumps at the clear well. It feels like there's something going on. But once that new pre-treatment building gets online, I guess, well, and once the new clear well, those have the new pumps. So, we're getting
We're
there.
also systematically replacing as many water lines as we can.
We are.
And we've made great progress in the last 3 years compared to the last 30 years before that. So
It's moving fast. Yeah.
everyone's doing what they can. Any other questions for Nathan tonight? Okay. We saw reports from Tasha, Greg at Public Works, and from the library. We have the engineering and billing report and the state attorney and planning billing report from the COG. Were there any questions on those? Or anything to add? Mona, do you have anything to report tonight? All right, hearing none there, we will move on to business from the mayor and city councilors. We'll start off with council president Borges.
This past week, last week?
Yeah,
It was last week?
jeez, I
We attended the Day of the Capitol and got a chance to speak with our House and Senate representative, and heard a lot of speakers like our governor and any other representatives. And I think it was really productive. One of our meetings resulted in coming down, Bruce Starr coming down 3 days later and walking Amity with us and exploring options for funding for another crosswalk beacon, the light beacon, to help with flow of traffic and keeping the safe crossing the street. So I think that was really productive. But just getting Amity out there, and the mayor's done a great job, but everyone knows her.
And council president is right by my side.
Productive and helpful.
Doing touch on the business meeting.
Oh, yes, we also had a business town hall and had 3 of our businesses, and then a presentation from the Plastic Free Committee, also giving that to businesses. So we got some really great feedback on parking to our parking and what we'd like to see down in the business district, what they'd like to see.
Talked about trees and sidewalks.
Yeah, we talked about trees and sidewalks, and talked about some other things. But it was a nice meeting, there's lots of snacks. Get more businesses hopefully next time, but I think we're gonna be doing them twice a year at least, moving forward.
When we asked the business community members that were here if they'd be interested, they said definitely twice a year, they'd be happy to check in and show us. They're gonna tell their friends too. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay. Councilor Shields, anything for us tonight?
Nothing to add.
Councilor Thompson? Nothing to add. Councilor Wall?
Nothing to add.
And mayor's report and final comments.
Mayor, can I actually interject one more thing?
Yes.
Tourism made me think of it. The letter of interest for a joint historic and tourism grant through Travel Oregon was approved, so we will get to move forward with our grant application there. Everybody I've talked to, has been really excited about the project and excited to see it move forward. So.
And then a joint meeting of the tourism committee and historical landmarks is happening February 18th.
Yes.
Same time as usual for us.
6:30, yeah. Well, I think the historic committee will plan to meet at like 6, take care of any specific business. 6:30 to 7, we'll probably plan to join, go over any grant stuff that we want to talk about, and then we'll let you guys have your have your regular time. So.
And then question along with the heads up, I've already let tourism know I will not be available that night.
But zooming in is an option, so it's also an option that I will be able to watch that Zoom after, right? A lot of my list was covered by Councilor Marquez. We did have a very good time in the Capitol, met with Representative Almer and Senator Starr. He came down, we were both very interested in pedestrian safety. We also talked about infrastructure needs, how wastewater is going to be a huge focus for us, along with other things. And both of them, together and separately, expressed interest in holding a joint town hall here in Amity. Senator Starr's district goes pretty far south, and so they'd like to bring in Representative Sharp as well, because Yamhill, Polk County, they kind of just have all overlays. I said that Amity would welcome them with open arms. Those are the people that we have at the state level that are representing us all. And so if they want to come here and give everyone updates about what's going on, we'd love to have them. So that would be the works, and we'll be sure to share widely if and when they plan to come. Quick update on safe routes to schools. After our walkthrough, that went to the Ultimate Planning Consultants, and they have somewhat of a draft of recommendations that they'll be sending to, or they have sent to the group for us to just look over and get extra input. And then we'll meet again in a couple weeks, but that means a lot of progress is happening, and we'll get probably a more robust update soon. There is a small cities meeting coming up next Thursday. Those are hosted by the LOC, and this is actually the president's meeting, and so more people will be joining. I just want to remind council that you all are welcome to all of those meetings that happen too. It's nice to meet up with other small cities. We meet with Yamhill County small cities, or I do often, but this is more regional, and so it's just a nice connection. But if you have not made the connection with League of Oregon Cities and you're not receiving their emails, it's very worth it. They just do updates. They have weekly calls that they'll give a bulletin what they're at, and even if you don't religiously open every email they send, it's a really good way just to figure out what's going on. And there's a lot of training opportunities and networking opportunities. This is the surprise. Juliet's house reached out to me. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and so they've asked, as usual, the council would be open to having a proclamation on our agenda for that, and personally, I'm happy to do that. I don't think there will be any opposition. They also are producing short videos for social media, and they would like elected representatives to be starring in these videos, showing why they support child abuse prevention efforts and what it means for them. So if anyone is interested in partnering with Julian's house in that aspect, let me know. I can help make the connection. I'm going to reach out and let them know that after hearing from you, we're happy to have the proclamation. We're happy to support. A lot of times they put the pinwheels out. I personally am not comfortable doing a social media interview, but I would encourage anyone that is to please let me know. I hope they get a lot of support in that way. Should be fun. And then my last two items are requests from the council for informal approval. The city continues to partner with the Downtown Improvement Group for the Daffodil Festival. In the past, every year, we have hosted a kids craft corner, and then I've also got a prize to do a raffle during that. I was just going to ask if the council would approve like between $25 and $50 for me to do that. I have the authority if it's within the budget, so I'll check with Tasha, I'll check with Nathan, but I just want to make sure there's council approval for that. See nods. And then the other request is of the same nature. The Willamette Valley Council of Governments reached out actually to Nathan today And in the email said, we're gonna follow up with the mayor next week, so I figured I would just. But they are asking for donations for their annual dinner, which I'll remind you is March 5th. That's why we changed our meeting. But they're asking for local donations from each municipality for raffle prizes. And so I wanted to make sure it was okay with you all if Amy donated $50 worth of local products for that. Maybe pies or chocolates or stickers, non-alcoholic representations of local wares. Okay. And so if you do want to go to that annual dinner, it's kind of a fun night out. Please let Tasha know ASAP. And the city will pay for you to attend, and your spouse is welcome, but I think it's $40 per person. But I'll be there. I love company. And if there are any questions for me, I think that's the end of our business for the night.
Motion to adjourn?
I have a motion and a second to adjourn our meeting at 8:31. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?